The difference between being in the city and being in a beach house is that weirdly in a beach house you're time rich. So we talk a lot about the rituals and the process of washing dishes or going fishing and coming back and cleaning the fish and people gathering around. And it's a completely different time movement that you actually have in these places. And a lot of our thought goes around how can we enhance that. I'm Lance Herbst of Herbst Architects, and this is the house that we call Whau. This home is located on Waiheke Island, which is one of the closest and biggest islands in the Hauraki Gulf. It's a 35-minute ferry trip from downtown Auckland. The island is home to some people that live here permanently, but there are a lot of people that use it as a beach house destination. It's known really for its wine estate, its water activities, and for its general beauty. So as a practice for the last 25 years, we've been working in this genre of building which is kind of referred to as bach in New Zealand, which is essentially a second house. It's a beach house. And these buildings range from really rudimentary shacks to really sophisticated buildings. The clients, when they approach us, what they really were looking for is they had bought this incredible land that had recently come on the market. It was a wine estate with a restaurant on it, and it had been subdivided. And for the first time in forever, really, the point, which is what this piece of the land is called, became available. And what they wanted was something that they could use as a getaway for the weekends, but also they were very concerned that the house sat in the environment sensitively and essentially enhanced the experience of being on the land. The decision to build in this particular location was made because it became apparent to us that the views in two directions, essentially from the north-south axis of the site, there is a view directly onto Rangitoto, which is the volcanic island, which is the icon of Auckland City. And then in the directly opposite position, it's a view straight down the Firth of Thames into the distance. As you arrive at the house onto the rear deck, your view is already cropped on all sides, but as you step through that aperture, the view then opens up into a panorama, and you're immediately drawn essentially to the right, which is the living space. It's a compact space, essentially a living room, a kitchen, and a dining room with a lanai outside of that. You move out into the lanai and there's a fire outside for the evenings and there's a barbecue behind doors. Otherwise, you cross to the other side of the living space, and essentially there's a level change at that point, which takes you down into the bedroom components of the house. There are 3 bedrooms. To the south side of that mass are the bathrooms and bathroom courtyards. Onto the view side are 3 bedrooms set up in a row. We often struggle with the idea of what do you do with letting light into bathrooms? You can let it in the roof, but if you've got any kind of wall without protection, then you're dealing with some kind of privacy issue with blinds or curtains or something you don't want to deal with. So what we often do is we make a courtyard outside the bathroom and then open doors onto that. That feeling like bathing for us, especially in a beach house, is quite like a visceral experience, and you actually want to make that as part of your day, like as a delightful experience. So the bathrooms essentially are semi-indoors and semi-outdoors. They're kind of a microcosm of what we're doing with the living space, is that semi-indoors, semi-outdoors. The shutter layer in this house is really one of the primary elements, both formally, because they are the element which connects the roof and the ground, essentially. So they're a kind of a filigree filler between the two, but they're also highly articulated. So they're designed as an element that essentially allows you to deal with the west sun when it comes in the afternoon, because it bounces off the water and can be quite bright in your eyes. So we have 4 shutters on the main facade, which you can move into any position. So the idea with it is if you're sitting in the lounge and you're starting to get a bit of sun, then you would move the shutter into that position to actually give you some sun shading from it. They're also designed as wind shutters as well, to take out the sting of the wind, because sometimes the wind will come off the water. The view is very particular, and we do get some of these, in that it's about a 270-degree view in one direction. So it's a very horizontal view, and we've learnt in the past that it really assists to kind of define the drama of that view, to actually crop it horizontally. So a lot of what we did is, in both the bedroom wings and in the main living space, was to essentially create a very strong horizontal crop on the floor, which we've done with the floor just falling off into a kind of trench before the pool, and then the swimming pool itself with a very sharp edge, which creates a very strong horizontal line. And then the same thing we've done in the roof, where it kind of floats through and then crops the sky. And what it does is it kind of accentuates the kind of the panorama feeling that you actually get from the view that's in front of you. So the materials we used, we really stripped it down to as fewer components as we could, and they were really all chosen to be weathered materials. The concept of this heavy stone-like material coming out of the ground without literally being stone is that it's kind of all, concrete blockwork, but it's got a 30mm plaster on it, and it's not a modern plaster. We looked far and wide and found a very old plaster that could still do old-fashioned cement plaster. And we know with cement plaster that it actually cracks and that it changes color when it gets wet, and it starts to stain a little bit over time, and sometimes you get little rust bits coming out of it. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted a sense of the building having been here a long time, even when it was just coming out of the ground. And then the other materials we chose were essentially for their lightness to contrast that heaviness, were just timber really, which in a bandsawn finish, again a kind of rough finish. And the idea is that the timber itself also weathers, so it has this kind of pre-weathered feeling about it. The site we chose was essentially the part of the site that wasn't covered in any native bush. And then during the process of building the house, we collaborated with Jared Lockhart, the landscape designer. And what he's been doing is essentially filling the areas that had been kind of cleared of native bush. He's kind of reseeding that. The view looking forward is you don't see any new planting in the foreground. You look to ancient bush, which is probably 30 meters away, and everything in the foreground, which was just wild grass, he's actually seeded with wild natural grasses. So there's a very natural look going forward. And when you look back up at the house, when you're walking back up from the point, you're looking through these very kind of frayed natural grasses, and the end of summer they go brown, and so everything sets itself off really well against the kind of aging plaster and the weathering wood. The other thing, when I see a building is sitting really comfortably in the land, I think we've done our job well, and I think that is the case with this one.